Everyone, and welcome to the second in our Transition Readiness Series. I'm Cheryl Kane Piasecki, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Jay Mathai, who is with our Compliance Division here at the Office of Government Ethics, and Jay is going to discuss with us OGE's inspection worksheet that OGE uses when it conducts inspections at agencies to assess agency ethics programs. And we're going to talk today about how you can use these same tools to do a self-assessment of your own ethics program to prepare yourselves for the resource stresses that many programs are likely to have during the presidential transition, as we are escorting out one administration and bringing in and onboarding a new administration. So Jay, welcome, and I'm very pleased to have you here today.
Thank you.
Before we turn it over to Jay to get us started walking through the inspection process, I wanted to let you know that next week what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing, based on some of the discussion we have today about how you go about diagnosing your program. Next week we're going to be discussing what do you do, what are some strategies for using the information that you may find when you do conduct a self-assessment to actually take steps to bolster your program or address any weaknesses that you identify after you have actually conducted a self-assessment. So that will be what we'll be discussing next week. And Patrick, if you could bring up the slide deck. I did want to let folks know, because I'm not sure, and if you could give me the next slide, please. I'm not sure how many of you are aware. OGE just recently issued a proposed regulation which is revising significantly, making significant changes to 5 CFR Part 2638. Which includes, among other things, descriptions of program requirements, OGE's role, the DAEO's role, et cetera. But one of the provisions that's in this proposed rule deals expressly with presidential transition planning. So while this is still a proposed rule, and obviously things can change between now and the time that it would be issued in final, should this rule as written be issued in final, there is a specific provision that talks about preparing the ethics program for a transition. To wit, it says the agency head or the DAEO must, not later than 12 months before any presidential election, evaluate whether the agency's ethics program has an adequate number of trained agency ethics officials to effectively support a presidential transition. So while this is not in force and effect at the moment, our Transition Readiness Series is effectively trying to help you do that, to have an ongoing discussion with you about ways that you can, in effect, do just this, prepare your ethics program for a transition. So with that, if we can, I'm gonna turn it over here to Jay in just a second. Jay, I know that in program review, there are sort of two different formats of review that OGE currently conducts. I know the one is a plenary type of review, which is a much more in-depth, time-intensive, and on our part, sort of resource-intensive type of review. But that we've also instituted something that is less involved, that is a diagnostic sort of tool that we use, which is this inspection worksheet. You want to talk a little bit about what this inspection is?
Sure, Cheryl. As you mentioned, inspections are a much quicker process than the plenary review process. And again, one of the reasons why we just decided to institute inspections or put together the inspection program is because plenaries did take a lot of resources and time. And again, inspections are focused primarily on compliance, and it is a relatively quick process to conduct an inspection. And the focus with inspections is to get a quick overview of an agency's ethics program. And the idea here is that inspections will provide indicators of whether the individual ethics program elements are functioning as they should, and whether there are any instances of non-compliance that are severe enough to warrant a more thorough review. So I think we can go ahead and start off. Yes, go ahead and pull up the inspection template and begin our examination of this template. And what I'd like to first do is focus on a couple of sections. Let's go ahead and take a look at section 1 on page 1. And when we look at section 1, it provides an overview of the agency landscape or the customer base of the ethics office. So if we look at rows 1 through 1.1 through 1.5, it's showing us the employees that the ethics office is responsible for, while rows 1.12 and 1.13 show the number of ethics staff available to handle the workload, so to speak.
Right.
Now, while this information is available elsewhere, it's really helpful to have it all together like this. And with this information, we can get a quick idea of the volume of potential work and also an idea of the resources that are available to us. With this information, we can also do quick ratios of employees or employee types available to ethics officials. So even if we do nothing with this template beyond just looking at section 1, we now at least have in front of us an idea numbers-wise of the potential workloads. And from this, we should also at least have an initial gauge of whether our staffing levels and available resources are sufficient.
So for example, then Jay, like a utility in this first section for folks might be, if once you have a handle on the number of political appointees you have, for example, and having that number squarely in front of you, it's an outgoing administration. So presumably a lot of those folks are going to be leaving. So just by looking at those numbers, you can get a sensibility about, for example, what is my post-employment counseling resource strains going to be? And
so the ethics officials can really be, working in their heads. Okay, all right, you can do like a quick guesstimate of, okay, like what are my potential workload? What is my potential workload going to be with these things happening, so to speak.
And the nice thing too is that at least now we have a sort of a date certain where we know changes are going to be occurring. So we have a fairly circumscribed time frame where we know these workloads are going to take place. So it's not like wildly guessing like you would have to under normal circumstances. In a presidential transition, everything is kind of scoped down to a manageable and identifiable time frame.
Right.
And the other thing I was thinking too is that one of the nice things about this too is having everything beautifully laid out for you, hard numbers right in front of you on a worksheet, is that if you do identify some resource limitations, this is the self-same, easily readable, easily identifiable set of data that you can take to, you can sort of sell up the chain. You can take it to whomever is going to be responsible for getting you resources, and you've got all of that data in one place where you can readily sell it.
Right. Exactly, Cheryl. And one more thing about this is, if we have some sort of an idea that the resources that we require are not going to be quite sufficient, having this information can be a prompt for us to start looking into the feasibility of allocating and training temporary resources, perhaps, from other areas of the agencies to help with our workload. And I think this is something that we can especially think about when hiring additional resources is not really an option for the agency.
And certainly many agencies find themselves in that position. So it's sort of beg, borrowing, and stealing wherever you can, because you're not going to have the budget to hire new. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's section 1. Now we can take a look at some of the other sections.
That'd be great.
Within this template. Now just a little bit about this template. One of the benefits of using this template is that it's fairly flexible in terms of how you may want to use it. You don't have to go through every single section of it, especially if you're having a reasonable level of confidence that certain section areas are not vulnerabilities, they're not areas of weakness. Or you may just want to structure your assessment in a way where you're just covering one section at a time. So this template is very, very flexible in terms of how you want to structure your assessment of your program. Now let's go ahead and turn to page 2 of this inspection template. Let me just pull that up. And what we can see is that sections 4 and 5 cover assessments of the financial disclosure program. And if we go down to rows 4.5 through 4.11 of section 4, we can see that this is where we're assessing the filing and certification timeliness of public reports. Now, OGE does this by taking samples of new entrant reports, annual reports, and termination reports.
So by sample, you mean you don't look at the entire universe.
No,
you pick
no,
what you
not
think
at
is a
all.
representative sample.
Right. So we are more like a judgmental. We take a judgmental sample
okay.
of you know, of like for public reports, we look at about 40, 40, 40. And now the agency, they can decide. They can also decide what is the most appropriate sample size that they want to use, and they can tailor the sample and the assessment to say known problem areas. So if an office or a department is known for its chronic delays or other issues, the sample could be targeted to that office. Now, just from an anecdotal example, during a prior OGE review, the agency that we were reviewing had indicated that it had done a similar assessment and had pinpointed the majority of its confidential certification delays to a single certifying supervisor.
Wow.
So they were able to target their assessment to a known problem area, and they were able to pinpoint it to actually a single supervisor. And based on that knowledge, the ethics office was able to address the issue with that supervisor. And so the expectation for this type of assessment when done by the agency is that the issues or problems that are revealed can be looked into further. So when you're doing a sample, you're seeing some problems. So that's your prompt to look further into the issue, and then when you look further into the issue, that's when you're in a position to arrive at a resolution on that problem area. Go ahead.
So now I was just going to say, whether or not it's sort of a useful analogy is for folks to sort of look at this as if like when you go for your annual physical at a physician. I mean, the physician kind of looks at your general health, and if you discover something that seems that it's not quite as healthy as it should be, then you do further analysis and then you do further testing. But the function of this inspection tool is mostly to what is the general health, and then once you find something else, then you can.
Right. So if you are finding serious issues, again, that is the prompt to find or look further into the issue area. Now, you may find that in certain instances, there are some problems, but it's not quite serious enough to warrant, a more in-depth examination. And it may be, and again, it's a risk assessment that the agency is doing to maybe live with some of the risk, where where they're determining that it's not such a big risk area. Yeah, there may be issues, but it's not such a big problem area, really.
Right. Okay.
Great. So moving along on this template, let's go ahead and take a look at sections 6 and 7 on page 3. Now, these sections address training, initial ethics orientation in section 6 and annual ethics training in section 7. Now, rows 6.3 and rows 7.3 and 7.4 assess training completion. Now, again, as with the financial disclosure section, this assessment gives the agency an opportunity to assess the causes for instances of high noncompliance. Again, the results may be used as a catalyst for exploring reasons for instances of noncompliance and addressing the issue or issues. And again, I just want to come back to an example from one of OGE's prior reviews. In that review, OGE found a high rate of non-completion of annual ethics training. And the reason why this was determined to have occurred is because the ethics office had not tracked training completion during the course of the year. So, instead of tracking and follow being conducted during the course of the year, it was done at the end of the year, and by that time it was too late to notify and ensure that the filers had received the annual ethics training. So a simple fix in this instance was that the ethics office decided to do their tracking and notification of the annual training requirement during the course of the year. So they are able to timely notify the employees of the annual training requirement.
Right. And it just seems to me that one of the ways that folks should be thinking about this too is that they're using it in anticipation of, of what their resource strains are going to be. And so, for example, and it's just kind of a reminder of like the things they should be thinking about across the program and through all elements of the program. So for example, I'm just thinking in my own mind with respect to annual training, I know we're all procrastinators, and I include myself among that group. And I know that a preponderance of folks wait until the last quarter of the calendar year to consider.
It's just human nature.
It is human nature, absolutely. But I think that in light of, we have an election coming up in November, and once post-election, things are going to be kind of fast and furious, that this would be a prompt for folks to consider. I need to get my ducks in order and see if I can't get that completed before then, because the tracking piece really is so if you're missing significant numbers of people, you're not going to necessarily have the luxury of catching those people before the end of the year.
Correct. And so these are a couple of examples of how this template, this inspection template can be used by the agency and its results analyzed to make improvements in the agency's ethics program. And now I'm open to any other discussions that we can have regarding this template, if there are additional questions.
Well, one thing that I mean, along the lines of what I had said before, I think like the last section of the Form 2, where it talks about ethics advice and counseling, again, it's just kind of a reminder that to agencies that you really do have to do a resource anticipation, an allocation anticipation when it comes to advice and counseling as well. Because again, as I mentioned earlier on, I mean, looking at the sheer number of political appointees you have, you're going to have a certain volume of post-employment advice, you're going to have termination, financial disclosure reports. So kind of being able to associate all of those workloads with the groups of people that are most likely going to be sort of requiring that, and then planning ahead for that, and then deciding, do I have enough resources to accommodate that? And if not, where do I get additional resources?
Right, exactly.
That this is precisely the kind of tool that they could use just to kind of create a game plan for themselves.
Right, exactly. And again, as we discussed on that page 1 or section 1 of this inspection template, it lists kind of the number of PAS, public, financial disclosure officials that the agency, would be responsible for. So again, this tool is again a good catalyst for further action, for the planning action or further in-depth analysis by the agency.
That's sort of describing what is,
right, exactly.
And then it gives you an opportunity to decide, what you want to do with that information.
Correct. And yeah exactly.
So a question I have for you, if we can sort of, I know that you guys use this tool, and you mentioned, I think when you were saying about the use of the inspection tool, that if you all see some fairly substantial non-compliance or whatever through the inspection tool, then you might elect to go in and then do a more intensive review under like a plenary review of a particular, even just a particular area of a program, correct?
Right. So if for example, in the financial disclosure program area, we're finding that there's a significant amount of late filings. So what this can prompt us to do is, okay, take a look at the results of of this inspection template. Okay, we're saying, say for example, that late filings are high, or timely filing rates are at maybe only 48, just to throw up a number, 48%. So I mean that's kind of a very, very low number in terms of filing timely. So that's a prompt for us to say, okay, what is the issue going on here? So based on that, what we would look to do is we would look more in depth into each of the reports in our sample, from our sample selection. Take a look at why were these reports filed late. And based on OGE's past reviews, the experience has been that typically a lot of the late filings are due to issues in communication with human resources, communication between human resources and the ethics office. And because of the gaps and problems in communications, so the ethics office is not being notified on a timely manner of new entrants and even terminating employees. So once you have the reasons for the non-compliance, so now you have the catalyst for engaging with human resources to correct that deficiencies. So the results of this inspection would prompt you to have that conversation with HR whereas before you're not really
identifying the causality
of it, and you're not really communicating with HR for to correct the issue.
Right. Well, and it seems to me too that there are two things that an agency could do with that information. One is that try to see if they can't ameliorate the problem between now and the time that the workload might be seriously affected by this deficiency in the process. Or if they don't feel empowered or have attempted and it's failed in the past, this is an opportunity for you to build a case for when the new leadership comes in to basically be making your case for why this has to change. And you have demonstrable data to support, this is the deleterious effect that this causality is having on the efficiency and the success of the program.
Absolutely. And that's exactly correct, Cheryl. And again, it's this whole inspection template is a starting point for doing further analysis on your ethics program. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very flexible tool that you can use. So if you feel that, at the present time, you'd rather allocate your resources to another area to examine, you can do that. You're not really fixed into following the whole template and hitting every section or assessment area within that template. You can go ahead and just select, okay, I want to find out how we're doing on annual ethics training this year, and then you can just perform your assessment. And if it looks good, then you're good. And if you are seeing indicators of problems, you can just go ahead and perform that additional analysis to determine what the causes of the non-compliance are, and then address the issue.
I'm curious with like you had mentioned when we were talking about initial ethics orientation, that there are some common issues that we sometimes see on an inspection form that then might prompt us to go in and do. Can you think offhand of like some things that we've seen on inspections that would prompt us to go in and actually do a plenary, and then like what we do with respect to that?
Again, with an inspection, the primary thing is seeing non-compliance in the area of financial disclosure. And also in terms of initial ethics orientation, sometimes we may be finding that completion rates are not quite where we would like them to be. And the issue may be that the agency may be providing or maybe have made that decision to provide live training. And because of that decision, they're not always hitting all the employees, and sometimes some employees are missing that training. So once you do that analysis, you're in a position to maybe make the determination to provide alternative forms of training where
Right.
you can provide, say, written initial ethics orientation material to the employee, and that way the agency is covered for having provided that
Right.
training to the new employee.
And I think that too, it gives you time to think strategically about that, because it may very well be that what you need to do is kind of triage your initial ethics orientation program. So identify those people for whom you think it is most important that there be a live aspect to that training, and then identify those employees where maybe even just for this year, like if it's a resource crunch for you for just this year, that for this year you're going to make a decision that there's just a certain type of employee, maybe one that isn't as at higher risk for, ethics, conflicts of interest or other ethics violations. And then say for this year, we're going to be satisfied with just providing written materials in lieu of a live briefing.
Exactly, Cheryl. And again, this whole template it's a tool to help us assess risk, and you can kind of, again, tailor your assessments and reviews based on what we think are the areas of risk. And then, when we perform that assessment, we may, find out we may still want to just perform that assessment to find out whether we are correct in our initial assessment of the risk areas. Sometimes when we do perform the assessment of a particular area, we may find that, hey, we're not doing as well as we had initially thought. That there are some particular vulnerabilities, say in the area of annual ethics training, where we may just need to take a sample of training compliance. So you can select a set of maybe 30-odd filers and see, okay, have they been trained? And we're finding, okay, well, based on that sample, we're only finding that about half the filers were trained. And so then, we can do that additional analysis. But, it kind of changes our initial assessment of risk, because now, initially we were thinking that, no, well, we're doing pretty good on annual training. But then based on this analysis that we did, we're finding, well, it's not quite what we thought. And we need to do some more work and address the issues that are coming up.
Right. So a question I have for you that I think that might be helpful for folks too is because people always appreciate having tools in their tool chest to conduct these types of things, and you all are the experts sort of in this area. You do this for a living. So I'm curious, when we go from an inspection to a plenary, are there checklists or process documents or something that you guys use as tools that we would be willing to share with agencies, so that if they, for example, diagnose a problem in their financial disclosure program and they kind of want to zero in on it, that we could give them some ideas about additional things like the worksheet you have here that could maybe help them know how to get their hands around, narrowing what the causality is?
Well, in terms of additional tools, I mean, when OGE's program review conducts inspections or plenary reviews, we're going off a review plan, and we are using checklists to ensure that we've met certain tasks required of the review. So in that sense, yes, we are using additional tools to perform our reviews, and agencies can certainly utilize some of our review planning tools that we use. For example, within our review plan, we have steps to ensure that we are covering financial disclosure sampling, and we have steps to ensure that we are making sure that we are covering what else? Training, making sure to get the training content that was used for both annual ethics training and for initial ethics orientation. So those are some tools that we use, but I still believe that this inspection tool may be the most quickest and most efficient way that the agencies can use to do assessments of their program. And again, once they do this assessment, it kind of leads them to decide whether additional
investigation
or analysis is required for a particular area that they're looking into.
Very good. Did you have any final thoughts you would like to share with the community about this instrument, or even the value of doing a self-assessment?
I think self-assessment are absolutely an essential tool for an agency ethics office, because I think it helps them find out where they stand on certain of their certain ethics program areas or ethics program elements, and it should be used. And one of in terms of assessment now, one of the things that the ethics offices can use are maybe they can do something like surveys of their employees in addition to this inspection tool. At one of the agencies that we had conducted a review of, they issued surveys of their employees just to find out what the employees' awareness of the ethics rules are, and also whether the employees were even aware that there was an ethics office available to them if they had questions about ethics. So those are a couple of other assessment tools that they can use besides the inspection. But again, I think the inspections are, I do believe, the most efficient way in which an agency can address their ethics program areas.
Okay, very good. Well, this has been very helpful. And what I would like to encourage everyone to do is between now and next week is to take a shot at filling out the inspection worksheet for your program, even just for your little area of the program. So if you're not in control of the entirety of your program, then even just the part of the ethics universe for which you're responsible, and bring that with you next week, because Patrick and I will join you again next week, and we're going to talk about some strategies for addressing anything that you might actually identify on the worksheet. But Jay, I really appreciate you being here today and to provide your expertise in this area. And I know that this tool is an enormously useful tool, and it's a very handy and easy tool for any ethics shop to use to basically get a good diagnosis of, or a good snapshot of what your program looks like. Patrick, do we have any questions on the Hangout? And Jacqueline, can we open the lines for anybody who has a question on the phone?
Absolutely. If you would like to ask a question from the phone line, it is star followed by the number 1 and record your name when prompted. Again, that's star followed by the number 1 and record your name when prompted if you would like to ask a question. If you need to withdraw your request, it is star 2.
And if anyone has any questions on the Hangout, you can ask them by typing them in the box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one thing I want to emphasize with folks is we're doing an uber emphasis here because of the transition period that we're in, and we know that this is a crunch time for a lot of folks, particularly in those that have a lot of political appointees who are going to be brought on board. But this is certainly a tool that agencies could more routinely use, just to kind of periodically get the pulse of your program and self-identify. You don't have to wait for OGE to come out to be able to do this.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And I'm not showing any questions on the Hangout.
And do we have any questions on the phone?
I'm not showing any questions coming from the phone line.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, I want to thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And again, I encourage you, if you're going to join us next week, to please take an opportunity to at least look at the inspections worksheet, and bring your thoughts and your concerns with you. And Patrick and I will do our level best to try to give you some strategies for approaching transition and getting your ethics programs ready for it. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and I hope to see you next week.